Hey, this is Web3 Talks. The rule of this podcast is simple. We only talk with people who have hands-on Web3 building experience. So if you are a hacker, entrepreneur, or investor, you can get inspired by their stories, lessons, and fuck-ups. My name is Mac, and I'm hosting this pod. If you want to stay in touch, go to twitter.com/Web3Talks, click the link in the pinned tweet, and join our Discord community. Let's go. So today's guest is Ivan, founder of Moralis. And Moralis, for those who don't know, is a blockchain infrastructure provider. They do a lot of things that help your dApp to connect with blockchain and also operate efficiently. So if you're familiar with Alchemy, Infura, or QuickNode that we covered a few episodes ago, they are in more or less the same category, but they have a different approach to working with developers, which I bet Ivan will speak at length about. But before we get to Moralis, Ivan, could you tell us a little bit about your backstory? How did you get into crypto? Because you've been here for a long time.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me, Mac. So like you said, Moralis is an infra provider. We're powering the biggest dApps out there, such as, for example, MetaMask, with, of course, millions of users, Delta Wallet, millions of users. And we're bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 development, so that if you are a Web 2 developer, you can come into Web 3 and you specifically don't have to learn about different nodes, how they work, because a node on Ethereum is different from a node on Solana. And let's say you're building a wallet or an exchange or a marketplace, you just want the assets of the user. You want to interact with the blockchain, to interact with the user. You don't want to learn necessarily how ETH works versus how Solana works versus how Elrond works, and so on and so forth. So that's why Moralis has grown so much. We started last year, and right now we're one of the biggest infra providers in Web3. And in terms of how I started, I've always been a developer. So development is in my blood. And when I entered Web3 in 2013, it wasn't even Web3 at that point, it was just Bitcoin. But at that point, my biggest interest was from the technical perspective, to learn how this thing can work, that you can have a cryptocurrency where nobody can just copy-paste coins, that it's a digital money. That's what hooked my interest. And then, of course, with the rise of Ethereum and smart contracts, and that you can program things, that really 10x'd my interest in this industry, because now you can build smart contracts, you can program money. I mean, that's really the freedom of blockchain, that anyone can program money, and they can build their own monetary primitives and Lego blocks, so to speak, of different programs. For example, you can build a decentralized exchange. That decentralized exchange can then be used in other applications. So let's say you build a game now, you can use Uniswap as your decentralized exchange within the game, so that you can have your in-game currency traded for ETH or Bitcoin or any other currency. So that's really powerful, the fact that anyone can reuse all of the different money Lego blocks. And in order to make it easy for developers, you need to have nice abstractions, you need SDKs, you need APIs, and that's where Moralis comes in. So that you don't have to worry about how blockchain works, but you use simple SDKs, simple APIs, you get started quickly, you can integrate Web3 into Web 2, into your Web 2 stack easily. So for example, let's say you have a database of users, and you just want to add Web3 capabilities to that database, so that you can, for example, connect user wallets, you can allow your wallets to get their NFTs into the app. With Moralis, it's very, very easy. So that's a short overview of what we do and my journey in the space as well.
I remember that you also had this Even on Tech part where you had a lot of educational courses on blockchain in general and on coding as well.
Right. And we still have it. It's called Moralis Academy now. So the way we started Moralis was that we built Ivan on Tech Academy, and that became the biggest online platform for education for Web3 devs. And that's also where we saw a lot of issues that devs face when they learn Web3. And that's also why we decided to do Moralis, because we saw that this cannot continue. I mean, the way that devs build, it's too bad. And it can be so much better, because both me and Philip, my co-founder, we come from the Web2 development space. And there we see how things work and how which nice APIs and SDKs you have when you're building something. So yeah, that's how we really entered this infra space.
Yeah, because, when you entered the space a year ago, it was very crowded. There has been many established players. So from the outside, it seemed very risky to enter such a crowded space with established players. So I'm wondering, what made you confident that it makes sense to start Moralis?
Well, because we have something that no one else was doing. Everyone was doing nodes, and we know that devs don't want nodes. Nodes are very bad infra because nodes is kind of like when you are using a CPU on the computer. Let's say CPU is important, just like node is important. But at the same time, if I want to build a website, I will not speak to the CPU because I will only build, number one, it's going to take a lot of time to build anything because it's low-level programming. You don't have a lot of abstractions. And number two, now my program only works on Intel CPU, let's say, and then it doesn't work on other kinds of CPUs. So the same thing is in blockchain right now, that devs that build on nodes, they handicap themselves because now you've built something that doesn't work on any other chains. It's very difficult to extend and very difficult to maintain because node is the lowest level building block, which means that you yourself have to build all the infra around it. Let's say you want to get all the NFTs of a wallet, you cannot ask the node from that. But for example, using Moralis APIs, you could do, and we did the first ever NFT API last year. And so we are really bringing innovation into the space. And now everyone has NFT API, by the way. And the same thing now we're doing with a lot of other new products, such as Streams API and others, that we're really simplifying the way nodes are used. And our whole point here is that if you want to achieve something and you want to build it fast, don't use the nodes. Because with the nodes, it's kind of like building on the CPU. You could do it, and there are some use cases where you have to do it. Let's say you want to build a real-time, some kind of trading bot where each and every millisecond of delay is ruining your application. So then you want to be as close to the hardware as possible. Then it makes sense. Just like when it comes to gaming, let's say, some devs, they work very close to the hardware because they want each and every, all the performance they can get. So there are some use cases for the nodes, but for most use cases, you don't need the node. You need something that will allow you to integrate with blockchain across chains, across different layer 2s, and so on and so forth. And that's where Moralis comes in. And that's also why we've been successful, I think. It's a totally new approach. And that's why when sometimes people are saying, oh, but you have this competition and that competition. We don't really see it that way because it's totally different. They are really focusing on creating a very nice workflow around the nodes. And that's very good. I mean, we need to work around the nodes. We're basically taking nodes and we're building our infrastructure around that. It's very important that someone does it, but the way it's looking right now is that Google and Amazon are going to do it because Google are doing nodes now. So that's why when it comes to nodes, it's going to be cloud providers that normally run them.
Okay, so how do you even start a business like that? Because, it's not like writing an app. You need to start an infrastructure business,
right.
Which is a totally different point of view and capital expenditures and so on. So how have you did it? You bought the first node and just set it up, or what?
No. So, I mean, like I told you, we had one of the biggest, probably the biggest online educational platform, which means that we had the capital to put into it. So the first few million we put ourselves, and we built a nice version 1. And we already, when we raised our first round, we had nice traction. I mean, we were becoming the biggest infra provider already with just our own capital. I mean, for something like this, you need capital. It's impossible to do it without capital. It's not that you can grow organically. You can theoretically do it, but it's going to be very slow. So that's why very quickly we went out into the market, into the fundraising market, and we raised our seed round last year, and then we raised our Series A this year because we have very high ambition. I mean, we're here building the default infra for Web3, and we're here to really improve a lot of dev experiences. And for that, we need to be able to grow into the niches of devs. So let's say we have the niche of NFT devs, a niche of DeFi devs, the whole niche of React devs, the whole niche of Node.js devs. We need to reach all of them, and we need to onboard them into Web3. So our big mission is that the next 10 million devs, we should be able to help onboard into the space. And to achieve that mission, of course, we need capital. We need great people, maybe the greatest people in this industry to help us. So for that, it made sense that we go out into the private equity market and we raise. So yeah, that's how we did it. And I think that the reason we were so successful at that is because we have been in this space for a long time. We've been educating about the space for a long time. And we have track record in this space as well. Yeah, that has been our journey. And it's something that has worked out well for us.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have some cash flow to set up an infrastructure business. So how does it look like? What's the first day or week or month of setting up an infrastructure business? What do you even do? How do you start it?
I mean, we're very spontaneous, Philip and I, my co-founder. We just started, I mean, we don't really think a lot. That's maybe why we do things. And while others may be thinking way more, but sometimes we've made also many mistakes because of that. But this space needs a nice infra provider that is not nodes. And then we started to look for talent. So we hired 2 very, very skilled backend devs early on. From that, we built our version 1 in a few months. And then we just started the dev community and went from there. I mean, it is not more difficult than that. It's just that our blessing in many respects is that we don't think too much when we start. We just do it, and then we figure things out. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Also, at that point, the market was doing quite well. So maybe that contributed to us being a bit risky with our own capital, where we thought, okay, let's do it. Let's invest. Let's start. Of course, when markets are down, now it's, of course, a way more difficult to part with your cash and invest in something. Psychologically, it's more difficult. But I think that helped us well, that the markets were doing well. Crypto was doing very well, where we thought, okay, let's do it. Both Philip and I were devs. We like programming. Let's build a dev tool. So, I mean, it was very spontaneous. We just started doing it. We started to look for domains, to brainstorm. And yeah, and then we launched it. And then we thought, okay, now we have our capital. How can we make this 10 times bigger? We need outside capital. Let's raise. And we never raised any money before that. So we thought, okay, how do you do that? Create pitch deck. Then we thought, okay, who do we know that can help us? Then we contacted some friends who's been raising before. And yeah, through friends and family and connections, we managed to do it. So all in all, my message is that you just start and you figure things out, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, and at least you tried, and that's it.
Okay, I tested Moralis before this interview, and I tested your SDK, and I was surprised that it really is strange that you can just type, 3-4 lines of code and just have the feature added to your app. So how does it work? Could you walk us through how does it work on technical level?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue that all blockchains have right now is that the node cannot tell you many things. So if you use MetaMask, for example, you know that the MetaMask wallet doesn't even know all your coins. No wallet knows all your coins. You have to go and add address. Or the same with NFTs. You need to go and tell the wallet, hey, by the way, I have this NFT, monitor it. So why is that? Because the way it works on the blockchain is that each coin is a separate smart contract. You can have you have millions of them. So there's no way for the wallet to know which smart contracts you have interacted with. The way to do it is that you need someone like Moralis to go through the entire blockchain and figure out all the NFTs you've interacted with, all the coins you've interacted with, so that we know, okay, this wallet has interacted with this NFT, so then we can fetch the balances from all of them. So that's one example of a very simple API that everyone needs that the node cannot give you. So that's one thing. Another big thing is that in NFTs, for example, it's a big problem with metadata. Some NFTs have metadata on IPFS, some don't. If you fetch metadata from IPFS, you need to do it in a fast, efficient way. And normally public links will not have that. You need a gateway. And some people put just the hash, some people put the whole URL, and some people put the whole URL, but it's to some gateway that is dead. And some people put SVG file in metadata. And some people put it to their own server, which is, by the way, running on Heroku free plan that you cannot even contact. And it's a whole, it's very difficult just to, let's say you're building an NFT marketplace. How do you do that without Moralis? It's impossible. So that's one of the most important features that from a data perspective that we provide is the NFT solutions. The fact that if you are yourself building, let's say, a marketplace, just to get all NFTs from the user and then show all the metadata and be able to serve the metadata quickly, it's very difficult. And so the way we do it is that we do all of this data pipelines. We run massive databases in order to make it easy. And that's really what we're focusing on. But next for us is, of course, to make the data smarter. So, for example, let's say you build a wallet soon, you will be able to get insights about the market. So let's say if you have a coin, when the coin is getting rug pulled, when liquidity is removed, Moralis can tell you that in real time, so you can tell your wallet users. Or let's say if you have an NFT marketplace and you have a lot of whales that start buying a specific NFT, Moralis can tell you that. So our long-term roadmap is that we have this basic data that is very difficult to do, but now we've done it for soon 2 years. And the next for us is to add things on top. How can we add even more value on top of this so that devs have an even easier time? And we started already this year with adding streams, so you can in real time get alerts when something happens on chain. Let's say you want a webhook when a new contract is minted, or when NFTs are transferred, or when an address receives or sends assets, stuff like that. We have a lot of roadmap too, a large and very ambitious roadmap to make the data smarter as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I know Solidity, I know how to make some basic smart contracts, but sometimes it's pain in the ass. So especially if you want to get expand, and make it more advanced than just basic features like number of NFTs and so on. So I think it might be very useful. So I'm wondering, when I set up my account, I was surprised because your onboarding process was quite long. I mean, it asked me for the name, am I a solo developer or do I work in a company? And it was I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 steps, something like that. So I'm wondering, why have you made such a long process, which obviously adds some friction because, some people might just say, okay, I don't want it, I will go to other service. So I'm wondering what was the rationale to set it up in that way?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we have a lot of work to do on our onboarding. So that's the last thing we've had time with. But we are spending more time on that recently to make it better. But at the same time, I mean, we want devs that are serious, that are here to build real stuff. What we don't want is people that create 50 accounts just to get the free plan. We don't want that because obviously it's just spam. So we need a nice balance of where if someone signs up and wants to try us, they should be able to try. But at the same time, they should also understand, listen, we're here to build something great together. So if you can tell us what you're building, so we can contact you and get to know you, because at the end of the day, that's our goal. We want to know our users. How can we help? Should we add this feature or that feature? If someone is fully quiet and uses us, I mean, it's okay for us as well that you just on the free plan and you're quiet and you're doing your thing. That's perfectly fine. But ideally, of course, want to know our users, want to know what they're doing, because otherwise we don't know what features to build. Otherwise, we don't know how to serve our users better. So we take all the chances possible to learn about the user. And then also, when you land on the admin panel, then you also see that we encourage everyone to contact us, to contact the account manager and all of that. So that is our goal. Of course, we want to know, but could we make it easier? We probably can make it easier to try us, because it should be easy to try us, but at the same time, you shouldn't be creating 1 million free accounts. We don't want any of that. And you should be in touch with us if you are building something real, because we want to know that. I mean, we've had some cases where real projects are going live on the free plan and we don't meet them, and then they get rate limited, for example. And of course, that shouldn't happen. That's something that we want to avoid. So if we just know the project and we can contact them, that's a big plus.
Just a short break to remind you that if you like this podcast, please don't hesitate to subscribe and give it a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you use. Thanks a lot. So when you run an infrastructure business like yours, you need to build strong relations with developers. The infra business 101. So how do you do it? Apart from, as you mentioned, you build Slack channels, you contact them a lot. What else do you do to build strong relations with devs?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. And that's also something that we being devs are familiar with. So for example, we focus heavily on search engine optimization. If you Google many stuff, we will be the first result when it comes to Web3 development. Next is about education on YouTube. The fact that we push several videos per week, educating devs how to build decentralized applications. So the way we build relationship is by offering free value, free education, free content, because we developers will love to learn. We love to find new things. We love to be educated about new ways to program and build things like that. So that's the most important thing, that we provide free education and free content. Then, of course, it comes to the product. The fact that the product needs to be very good. It needs to have nice documentation, which is maybe one of the most important things when it comes to dev relationship building. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. I mean, it's basically all of these simple things. There's no silver bullet, but it's just that you got to do them every day, all the time, very seriously, relentlessly. And that's our approach to this, for sure.
And do you do any community meetings or conferences or, I don't know, Discord channels, Slack channels, something like that?
Of course, of course. If you go to moralis.io/join Discord in one word, we have live streams on our YouTube. We still haven't had the in-person conference. So that's something that we, of course, would like to do in the future as well. But for now, we're mainly online. And we also sponsor a bunch of hackathons, such as ETH Global and others. We also do our own hackathons. Like right now, we're doing a hackathon with Google. So if you search Moralis Google Hackathon, you'll find us. We did hackathons with Avalanche, with Binance Chain, Kronos. So we are investing a lot in our community. And the prices there are quite big. I mean, if you are in part of our hackathon, you know that our prices are like from 100K to 200K. We even had $500,000 with Avalanche. So this is the best thing with Web3 development, that we can really create a lot of sponsors, or we can attract a lot of sponsors to sponsor these hackathons, which means that you as a developer, you are in a very good shape if you develop something nice. So I definitely encourage you to join Moralis community on Discord, moralis.io/join Discord, and look out for the next hackathon, which will happen soon. And right now we're doing, the one with Google.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and when you started, how have you acquired your first user? Who was your first user, and how have you acquired them?
All organic. We did a YouTube channel. Then we had our Ivan on Tech channel, which we still have, about the markets. So there we basically said, listen, if you're a dev, come check out this. And it was all organic. We did the YouTube channel, then docs, and we did the hackathon also in the beginning, so people could win prizes. But all organic, and all just spreading the word in the community. Yeah,
I think it's useful to have an audience, just like you had. There's this saying, build your audience before you build the product. And in your case, it must have helped a lot to...
I think so. Yeah, and my audience on YouTube, it wasn't only devs. I mean, I did a lot of videos about the markets and Bitcoin and ETH from price and market perspective. But maybe 15% are devs, because people that buy cryptos are devs, that to a big extent. So it has helped for sure, yes, to get the initial traction.
And you scaled fast, very fast. You started less than 2 years ago, and you already employ 100 people. So how have you managed to deal with that fast growth? Because I know it can be very challenging.
Yeah, it's all about the values of the company, onboarding, and how we work together. So we are fully remote. We are in over 40 countries. If you want to learn how we work, you can go to moralis.io/MBS, which stands for Moralis Business School, so MBS. So moralis.io/MBS. That's basically an open source free course that anyone can take without sign up or anything. You can just watch the videos. How we work across time zones, how we communicate, because when you work across time zones, it's very important that everyone is very disciplined in their communication and very disciplined in the documentation. Because otherwise, let's say that you and I discuss something, but people are asleep and other team members wake up in a few hours. How do they know? How are they looped in? All of these things, it's very important that you are disciplined when you are remote. So the way we organize is that we're very relentless when it comes to values, when it comes to culture, when it comes to being picky about who joins our company, and that when they join, that we can onboard them into our ways of working. And it's very important that people that we onboard are humble, and we're very relaxed in terms of personality in our company. We say, we always avoid Game of Thrones. We don't want anyone who is there, making some politics or anything. If we sense any of that, we don't want any of that. That's very important, that people are very humble, down to earth, here to not push their own agenda, but push Moralis in all circumstances. We never push our personal agendas, because it's not how we become successful. We only become successful if we push Moralis first, what is best for Moralis, and that's very important. So I think by setting a nice precedent, by setting strong culture, ensuring that everyone is part of the culture, we achieve efficiency. And also being strict. At the end of the day, it's not that, and by the way, we've made many mistakes on this front, that it's very important to be strict. Who joins? Are they talented enough? Do we have high talent density or not? It's all about talent density. But by doing this, we ensure that we are efficient, because also, let's say that you hire someone and they're not the level of your team. They destroy the team. They will make the team less efficient, because now we need extra check-ins. We need someone to check their work and so on and so forth. So when we hire someone, we want to ensure that they're at least at our level, and ideally they should be a bit better, so they even push us up a notch. And this results in the top performers loving to work with us, and they attract even more top performers because top performers don't have time to like re-explain or recheck everyone's work. And that's very important. We want to create the high-performing environment where we have nice onboarding, we have very nice documentation, where if we hire someone, they can get up to speed quickly, and we have very nice down-to-earth culture where everyone is pushing Moralis. And we document a lot of that in our open source course, moralis.io/MBS. And that's also, we want to attract these kinds of people that love this. And some people will like it, some people will don't. And that's why we make our course open source. So we can find, if people watch it and they love it, they are our perfect fit. And that's who we're looking for in hiring.
That sounds like a very interesting recruitment strategy, just making it so upfront about how does it look like to work with you. Because, sometimes companies have this like day in the job of, product manager at Meta, but these are very staged videos that like are not really like useful. But if you just say, okay, these are our values, this is the things that you need to know, this is the way if someone writes to you on Slack, you should respond right away if someone says it's urgent or whatever. Like, these kind of rules can make sure whether someone is a good fit.
And most importantly, setting the expectations, because people come from all kinds of different backgrounds, different countries, and so on and so forth. So we need to clearly set expectation, how we work and how we interact with each other. For example, in some cultures, it's very unnormal, it's very taboo, you can say, to speak about your boss, just because it is how the culture works. You're saying against your boss, you're disrespecting them. And for us, it's very important to get everyone on the same page that, you are expected to tell against your boss if you think they're doing a mistake. You are expected to give your opinion. Because in some cultures, and there is a good book about this, it's called The Culture Map. And we learned a lot from that, where you really see how many misunderstandings can happen just because of the way we are brought up and how for example, some cultures, when they explain something, they are very analytical. For example, before they get to the point, they will give you all the reasons, all the thinking. And it takes like an hour to get to the point. While some cultures are vice versa. They get to the point, and if you don't understand that, you may be thinking, okay, but give me the background. Like, why don't you give me the background? So it's very important that we align all of that. And also in some cultures, let's say you are a manager or you are a boss, and you ask your team, okay, what do you guys think about this specific issue? And no one will tell you that, because they will be trying to understand what you think, and then they're going to repeat that. So if you have that kind of culture, then it's better that you as a boss, you're not even in the meeting. You tell them, discuss yourself, give me opinions, and then present like together. So they don't have to speak against you. So, all of that is very important. And I recommend the book, The Culture Map, where you guys can learn all about that who are listening, because it's very important, especially in a remote place like ours, that we understand how we're speaking to each other, because it can differ a lot depending on the context and culture. Yeah.
And when building Moralis, what were the hardest decisions and trade-offs that you had to make?
In terms of trade-offs, I think it's always the use case trade-off. When we started Moralis, we did too much. Like, we even had the nodes. We thought that we're going to have the nodes so we get more users. So we had the nodes, we had like IPFS, we had even file storage. You could upload the file to us and Dropbox or something. Like, we had to cut all of that and be very specific. So I think that's one of the results when we don't think a lot before we start doing something. We're very spontaneous. And that's a big plus, because we achieve things and a lot of things. But at the same time, when we are spontaneous, we sometimes don't think enough about how is it to actually run infra when you have all of the different bells and whistles. So that's a good example where we removed a lot of that. So we are right now Web3 only. And we are very focused on our data stack. So I think that's maybe the biggest one, where we have seen that it's all about focusing on a few things and do them well. And we very quickly discovered that, by the way. It was a matter of a few months, but it was important discoveries and trade-offs from that perspective that we learned. Like, when we started Moralis, we thought that, we can do this and that and this. And why not? And then you see it's a lot to actually do it well. So we had to just reprioritize and do a few things really, really well. And the reason we could make those decisions is because the clients told us what they wanted. We basically looked at what clients are using, what they're paying us for mostly, and we did that. And that was a lot around the data and basically what we have right now, our SDKs and our APIs.
Okay, and how do you work on SDKs? Do you have any special process for that?
Well, I mean, we look at the users. What do users want and how can we make it easy? SDK is really a wrapper around the API. So we look at the best practices. How are devs using the SDK in terms of types, in terms of conversions between different data structures, things like that. So that's the best thing with the SDK, that you could use the API directly, but it will not give you all of these types and conversions. So it all starts with the use case, and that's where we build the API, and then we look, okay, what would make sense in terms of the SDK? And that's also a lot about the use case. Let's say, for example, you are querying user balances, and you get the result in Way, but in the app, you want to display it in ETH, let's say, in ETH decimal. So it's like simple utilities. So SDK in reality is just a wrapper around the API. And there we see at the use cases what people want to use and which type conversions and things, which utilities we can provide them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know that some people say that if you rely on infrastructure like yours, it's super helpful to grow, but it can also pose a risk to decentralization because like you're a company, someone could theoretically shut you down or some regulator or something like that. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think about it?
Well, if you are using MetaMask, you are using Infura on the backend because MetaMask speaks to Infura. If you are using any kind of application, you're using some kind of provider behind the scenes. So no one is running their own node. I mean, that's how it is. And in terms of regulator shutting down this and that, I mean, we don't transfer any assets. We don't really move any funds. So we are providing tools around the blockchain. So we are not in a risk of getting shut down because we're doing something that is in the gray area of regulation. What we're doing is 100% in the white area of regulation, which is providing data about blockchain, providing tools and services around the developer experience, how to connect Web2 accounts to Web3, how to get user data, how to get it in real time, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to the fact that Web 2 and Web 3 are merging. So let's say you want to build something where you don't even use any infra provider, then you're not really our client. Because if you want to build something that is you're never using anything, you could still do that. Like you can build a website that only speaks to MetaMask. You could do that. And that would be fully decentralized. The problem is though, that you can only do basics. Like you cannot get any nice data. You cannot get real-time alerts. I mean, it's very difficult to do that. But there are a whole space of apps that are okay with that. That's one type of app. Like you look at, for example, something like Uniswap. Uniswap just needs to connect to your MetaMask, and that's it. That is good to go. Let's say you're building something a bit more complex. Let's say you're building something like OpenSea, or you're building like MetaMask. I mean, there you need data. You need to be, by definition, using some provider that can give you that data. So I think in general, it's all about the different use cases. And I think the space, it's moving more and more away from this, underground coding where I'm going to move around my app. If this gets shut down, I'm going to move there. Web 2 and Web 3 are merging. Instagram now has NFTs. Twitter has NFTs. This is the kind of infrastructure and the ecosystem that we're entering, where legit companies and not just underground coders, so to speak, are using this tech. So I think it's just natural progression of this industry. But always, if you want to do something completely decentralized, not use any provider, it's possible. You will be only speaking to Web3 provider, default Web3 provider, which is MetaMask, and you can upload your frontend on IPFS, and you can maybe connect an unstoppable domain to that as well. So it's possible, but it's just not the kind of devs that we're serving. And if you are that kind of dev, I mean, we would not be right for you. But then no one would be right for you. You just use MetaMask, default provider. So that's, it's just different use cases. It's different use cases. But the devs we serve, they are building something real. They have a team. They have a company that is registered somewhere. So it's not the kind of people that, build something and then instantly that they are worried that they're going to get shut down. It's more Web 2 merging together with Web 3. And that's what we're fixing, the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3.
Yeah, I think, the important thing that you said is that at the end of the day, okay, you can build something on Moralis or any other infra company, but you can be decentralized. You can even run your own node in your house, and that's okay. So at the end of the day, you have this option. You might not use it. And in most cases, it's not useful because you won't grow so fast. You would spend a lot of time just doing some infrastructure stuff and not code. So.
Yeah. And I think Web 2 has shown that people don't want to do that. People don't run their own email server. even those guys that want to be fully decentralized, do they run their own email server? Do they run their own web hosting server? I mean, probably not. So at the end of the day, I think that as time passes, Web2 and Web3, they merge together. And that's the bridge we're providing. Yeah.
Okay. So Ivan, like, what has been the biggest lesson for you when it comes to Moralis? So, like, what have you learned and could share with people, like with other builders like you, about building in Web3?
Well, I think the biggest part is about the team building, because before Moralis, we had the team as well, but it was maybe 10 people. And now we are 90 altogether in Moralis and approaching 100. And it's totally different how you onboard people, how you, basically what we just discussed before with the values, the culture. I mean, before, I didn't really understand it to the same extent as now, because when you don't experience it, you think that, but what is values? Some, corporate mambo jumbo, we like this, everyone should be happy, kumbaya. But no, it's very important, because values is basically, we have it open source. You can go to our moralis.io/mbs. But for example, how we communicate, I don't want to explain it from scratch to everyone that joins. I want to be able to either tell them, read here, all about transparency, how you communicate, how you loop everyone in. And in case someone does a mistake, I can easily link them the values. I can link them like specific portions of our manual, how we work together, which are our values and ways of working. So I think that has been the biggest thing, to build it up, to set expectations. And we've done it through trial and error at the end of the day. Sometimes we hire people that are not good enough, simply as that. And then it's very painful to remove them, but we have to do it. And we have to be better next time, not to create that situation. And we had people that we onboard, but it's been a bit too slow, and we want them to be onboarded quicker. So how can we do that? We create better onboarding and things like that. So I think that's been the biggest thing. It's not really about Web3 or building in Web3. It's just in general, to do anything, you need to work together with people, and you need to create a team that is very efficient, where people love working, where people are relaxed, so everyone can let their guard down and be themselves, and not be Game of Thrones, which we don't tolerate at all. And I think that's been the biggest challenge. And we're still learning about that all the time, and how to do it remote as well with different time zones. I think that's been, but it's been fun as well. I love this kind of development. I mean, to me, it's the reason we do Moralis. Many people ask me, Ivan, why do you do Moralis? It's all about development, like how I can learn more things and structure teams. And it's kind of like programming. In programming, you create a class, and then you can reuse that, and you can plug things together. It's kind of like that when building a company as well, that you can build a team, and maybe if you do a really good job, you can make it self-sustainable. That, for example, that team, they can hire themselves. They have their own hiring process. Very difficult. But if you can build so they can hire great people themselves without you being involved, fantastic. Then that team has a product manager, which is very good, so they can plan their own roadmap. And you have a Scrum Master that can ensure that the devs can dev without being distracted all the time. And then you kind of package it as a module. It becomes a module. And then you can have several dev teams, and then you can package them as a department. And then, you package several departments as, tech. And then you have VP of engineering it's kind of like programming. You can program on higher and higher levels. It's fascinating, and it's very difficult. It's extremely difficult. And I still don't know anything about that, but I know more than 2 years ago, I can tell you that.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Just like having, subroutines and functions so that you can connect together. Yeah, I never thought about it this way.
I mean, as a developer, you think about subroutines. Exactly.
Okay, so Ivan, if you had a magic wand and you could fix one thing about Web3, what would you fix?
Well, I mean, I would fix all of the unserious BS that we have going on. Like you probably have followed last week with, what the hell? Here we are building, and then some guy comes and the rug pulls everyone. What the hell? We should be past that long time ago. So I think that's the biggest problem, because, we're building great things, we're pushing great things, and then we are set back by these catastrophes that are happening in the space. With recently FTX, I hope that no one else is affected. But before that, we had Celsius, and before that, we had a lot of other stuff. So I think this space needs more responsible players, and we need more decentralization. People need to host their own assets. That's why, when people ask me, that question you asked about, but Moralis runs infra and it's providing infra. Is it centralized or decentralized? to me, that's not a question, because it's all about the assets. Assets should be decentralized. Like APIs and infra and all of that, you can replace that anyway. If your app becomes big, you can run it yourself. You can run a node and create your own API and indexer. It's possible. But the big question for me are assets. Assets should be decentralized. You should not trust a centralized entity to hold your assets. We have to rediscover that. That's how this industry started. We lost it. So I think that's the main thing, that we need to go back to decentralization. We cannot give centralized entities our assets that they then lose and the rug pull half of the industry. Like, what the hell? I don't like that. And I hope we fix that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, we need to go back to the roots and just like, not your keys, not your coins.
Exactly. No, and I think it will happen now. People are withdrawing, people are learning, but in 10 years, we're going to make the same mistake again if we don't remind ourselves more about these times.
Yeah, and even because of your position, you have seen many Web3 projects, because you see just like a big part of the market when it's being built. So what has been the most mind-blowing, interesting Web3 projects that you have seen? Something that was...
Well, we have the big guys, of course, like MetaMask, for example, using, and it's fascinating to see their way of working and how they're developing. But that's from something that everyone knows, like everyone knows MetaMask. But then we've had other projects, like, for example, World Wide Web. It's a game that received like 50,000, maybe even more. I don't want to tell their number for them. Maybe it's even bigger, but like tens of thousands of players. And the way that they used Moralis was that they created a simple game. You can use your NFTs. You can be a character with like whatever NFT in the same game. And there are quests and there are communities. I thought that was very brilliant, because normally before that, you had games only using their own NFTs. Like, you didn't have a game where you can take any NFT. And they made this social experience where you can bring your own NFTs and they made like partnership with different other NFTs where, now they are onboarding cool cats, or they're onboarding this CyberKong and all of that. I thought that was pretty brilliant, because it got a lot of attention very, very quickly. And they scaled in Moralis very, very quickly, because they got this momentum from all kinds of different projects. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting to see how you can not only build your own community, but leverage other communities in your Web3 game.
Mm-hmm. And that builds on the point that you made, that, Web3 is all about this interoperability of money and of like money, but also NFTs. So like, because there's a token standard for NFTs, you could do it. Like, you'd easily just connect these NFTs in one game. If you wanted to make, Diablo 4 and just connect stuff from, Counter-Strike or whatever, it would be very hard, because these are databases and created in a different way. So I think it's great.
And I don't know what use cases make sense. I haven't seen a nice use case with many different NFTs in some kind of game fashion. But in this example I gave before, it's not like it's gameplay. It's more like a social... It's more like Habbo Hotel or something from the past. I'm sure there are several of this, like where it's a game, but it's more like the social aspect of the game that is fun, and where you can like bring different friends together and hang out. So that's the cool thing with World Wide Web. But then in terms of me taking a sword or some gun from one game and using it in another, I haven't seen that work out yet.
Not yet, but I think it's like the holy grail for many people. Because it's like, it taps into the strengths of the blockchain tech. So
exactly.
So I'm wondering, what has been the funniest thing that happened to you? Something that made you smile, laugh, some anecdote.
Oh man, I'm smiling every day of the craziness of this industry. It's when I see all this crap with FTX, sometimes, it's so ridiculous. I'm just laughing at that. And it's very horrible events. I lost myself 10 ETH in FTX. It's not the end of the world, but it's just that, man, it's crazy. What the hell? It's almost funny that the guy controls the whole exchange. He speaks to the senators and then he rug pulls. There is some irony to that. I think it's hilarious. Or Craig Wright, who says that he's Satoshi. In what industry does that happen? What the hell? And then Elon Musk pumps Doge. I laugh every day, because it's so it's insane industry. It's so, sometimes it's so dumb, but it's so fantastic at the same time. It's very funny. We're in the bear market, we're losing so much money, but we are at least entertained by all of this. It's insane.
and what I love about this industry is that when we lose a lot of money in bear market, we just make memes and shitposts. post and just have fun.
Exactly. Exactly. Like all the memes about this. I don't know if you saw about FTX with this office meme where they where CZ like lights a fire and like the whole yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. I mean, it is like, we're making a fortune, then we're like losing half of it on the way down. And like in any other industry, I don't know any other industry like this, but it's dumb as hell. At the same time, it is changing the world as we're speaking, and we're memeing to the top. I mean, what can you wish for?
Yeah. That's a lot. There's a lot of fun. So, like, Ivan, I have last two questions. Like, first of all, where people should go if they want to learn more about Moralis? What's like the landing page for them?
Yeah, it's moralis.io. Go there. Follow us on Twitter, Moralis. You find it. YouTube. Join Discord. But yeah, go to moralis.io if you just want one place to go.
Okay, and the last question. I have many builders here, so I'm wondering, do you have any idea for other builders that might be a good fit for the conversations that we had? Someone,
that's a good one. Other builders. Well, I mean, the World Wide Web creator is Tom, he's called. He's very, very fascinating. And he can explain more how he built that game and all of that. I think that's one. Then in terms of others more doing what we do in terms of infra, maybe Chainstack guys. Yeah, I mean, basically these guys. But I mean, I'm interested in interviewing many builders. So I'm going to book an interview with Thorchain because we're interested in like figuring out. But yeah, if you're interested in that as well. Like the cool thing with Thorchain is this cross-chain liquidity. And now that centralized exchanges are going bust, we're very interested in exploring like, can we do something, some infra, something? But yeah, I mean, also Radix, they're doing a chain, of course, but Radix is very interesting. And we are working together with them. And basically what Radix is doing, it's fascinating that they're taking all of the primitives, for example, asset or swap, and they're making it native. Because today it's not native. Like, for example, on ETH, it's a smart contract, which means that you can scam. Like now, I don't know if you followed now with FTX hack, where some of these coins that they stole, they can create transactions on behalf of you. Like it's called spoofing. You can spoof transfers. You can change balances through just, changing the balances mapping. And so Radix, what they're doing is basically that you have an asset, and that's like built into the system. It's a data type of the system. You cannot like manipulate it. You can send it, you can receive it. And then also they have built in that you can trade. So I think that's interesting that you can have asset, trading, lending, like built in, which means that if you want to build a DEX, it's like 10 lines of code because all of that is already built. It's like native. So from the perspective of, interesting techs, that is the one. But yeah, some overview.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Ivan, for coming. Like it was very interesting to talk about such a fast rising project, So thanks for sharing your experiences and see you around.
Thanks, Mac.
So this is almost the end. But if you like this episode and don't want to miss the next ones, feel free to subscribe. If you liked it a lot, I'd be personally grateful if you could give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you use. Thanks to these ratings, more people can learn about Web3 Talks, and it's really important to me. That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.